Hey, how's it going, everybody? On today's show, we're talking about a recent article that came out that said H&M is now using AI models as part of some of their ad campaigns. And this, as you would imagine, has generated some debate and some people who think this is a good idea. By the way, they're working with models to create these digital twins, which we're going to get into. So the models are involved in the process, but this just brings up a bigger conversation for today's show, which is like, okay, this is what H&M is doing, and they're not the only ones, by the way. They're not the first, but it's a larger conversation with the new abilities, multimodal abilities, video and images, certainly with ChatGPT 4.0 and what you can do with image creation there, and now with Gemini 2.5 and video creation, and where we kind of know this is going with the stuff that we always talk about on the show. What does this mean for industries like brand creation or models? What does it mean for the people behind the lens? We're going to talk about that. Actually have a very, very dear friend of mine who we're going to talk and get her thoughts on that as well on the show. So that's what we're talking about on the show. Today is April 15th. It's tax day here in the United States, 2025. So welcome to the show. On the show today, we have Beth, Junmi, Andy, and I'm Brian. And yeah, guys, this is going to be an interesting show, and I wanted to tell you guys, because I haven't had the chance to communicate with you, that two things. I reached out to my friend Angela, and I'll pull up her website so people can kind of get a feel for her. I mentioned her on the show before, and I said, "Oh, I have this friend that's a photographer." But that doesn't do it justice, right? Now, this is somebody I met literally on the first day of freshman year of college. So like August something of 1996, my first day at UGA, because our last names were alphabetical. And they seated us alphabetical in this statistics class that had like 350 people in it. And I'm Miss Sari and she was Murray. And so by just literal alphabetical order, I have now had a friend, a dear, dear friend for many years. She's a model. And then she went behind the camera and she's done photography and done amazing work now for 20 plus years. And so I thought, ooh, who do I want to have an opinion from? Angela. So I reached out to her earlier this morning and I said, hey, I said, like, this is what's up. She's like, I definitely have some thoughts on this. I said, well, if you'll record an audio note, well, I'll play it on the show, because I don't want to speak for her. Right. So I have an audio note all set up for the conversation, which we can get to in a little bit. But I just wanted to kind of throw it to you guys first and just see, where are you as you saw this? There's some interesting twists in here, because it wasn't like H&M went around the model. They got permission. The models own their own digital twins. They can use their own digital twins with other competitors of H&M. And then let's just pull up what that might look like, because at the top of this one particular article, it's not the Vogue one, but hold on, I lost you guys 1 second. But this actually shows what that digital twin might look like. And Carl just joined us too. Welcome, Carl. Okay, so I just wanted to bring this up at the top, because this is actually one of the models, Mathilda, I guess you say her name. She's like me without the jet lag. But this is the model. On the left is actually her. And on the right, it says here is the digital twin. Now, we already know that this is possible. But again, want to throw it back to you guys. I just wanted to show an example of it on the screen. What are your guys' first thoughts here? Is this a balance of this is going to happen anyway with a let's get the creatives involved as much as possible? Or is this a PR stunt really just to say, let's get the creative models impossible now so we can just route them out? And what happens to the Angelas of the world, the photographers, the makeup artists, the lighting artists, all the post-production people who may effectively just be cut out of the deal? So even if the models are the ones who own their digital twins, what about everybody else that it took to create those ad campaigns?
I think they're at risk. The likeness of real humans who can make an appearance on a runway, ultimately as a result of their becoming a high-end fashion model, I don't think they're at risk. I think they probably don't enjoy the shoot days as much as they do, seeing the actual end result of it. So as your model there, Matilda, said, it's me without the jet lag. I don't have to get on the jet. I don't have to go to the location. I can just, earn my money based on my likeness. And so it's working for her. Now, at the same time, we all realize that no brand really needs to have a real live model behind the scenes unless they're going to do fashion runway kind of work, right? So, or they want to have a model as a major character in their brand campaigns that will actually make live appearances at, you know, conferences or whatever. So there is always a place for the live model who has the look. But this, I think, really is an extension of photography, right? So it obviates the need for all of the hours and hours and painstaking posing to get the shot, because you can recreate the shot from a digital avatar that has been collected with permission from the model. And this is very similar to actors who now, I think, probably in almost at least many cases, as soon as they contract with the production to modify or have risk management of the possible injury or loss of that actor in an ongoing production, those actors have already, through CAA or one of the other major acting agencies, they've already done the photography of their body and their face and multiple expressions. And so there's a digital library of each one of those. And I think I recall from even a couple of years ago, a company that was providing this to the major actor representation agencies. And Junmi will know a lot more about this, but I think it's the same kind of thing. We create the digital model, and that gives us insurance against or convenience for the model or the actor, so that, hey, if in post-production we realize we've got to make this change just a little bit, we don't have to call the actor back. We can just get their permission to make that change with their approval of the final result. And it's very much faster. But again, it does implicate all of the people who are involved in the painstaking processes of today.
Yeah, I think Andy, you laid it out really well. And Brian, yeah, the key component here is everything that you don't see that leads to the final product, right?
Sure.
Now, has H&M covered their bases by trying to make this model first and things like that? Probably. I think there's going to be a large discourse about this for a while, mainly because it doesn't answer all of the questions. But making, at least paying face to, hey, we want these digital twins to be created. It's for the benefit of the model. I didn't see anything about specifics in terms of contracts. Ideally, what I know the artists and the content producers and things like that, they would like, ideally, is a 1-for-1. Anytime you would use whatever your pipeline is, if people would be used to fill those spots traditionally, then you pay those people those rates for those spots, even if you replace them. So now, will that happen? Probably not. But I think the key thing here is to recognize that, yes, this is probably the harbinger of things to come. There will be, it'll definitely be spun in such a way to mitigate the early backlash. But this is not the only company that has used AI in their advertising or their marketing, right? Or whatever their content is. And so we're going to see more and more of that. And I think that does beg the awareness to keep an eye on answering the questions that aren't fed to us. And mainly, so for example, what happens to the photographers if you no longer need a studio to shoot your photo shoot? Then who's in charge of that? Ideally, you'd still want to have whoever your creative head is, or creative project head, so that they can make the final decisions. Is it a switch to different personnel or is it a reduction, and most likely a reduction to some key personnel? So instead of you having the photographer and all of the assistants and people who are running the lighting and people who, are setting up various equipment, or your gaffers and all those kinds of things setting up
Mm.
your studio shot, you essentially would cut it down to maybe the photographer, if they've got that AI skill set. It's like, oh, I have the eye. I know what I want to shoot. Let me create it with these tools instead. So I it's going to be a difficult transition, I think. Um, and then there's even larger questions about using digital twins in something like in content creation, because most of the time, when you have a photo shoot, what you're showing off is the fashion. If it's a digital twin, are you telling the truth of what your fashion is? Is this the actual product, or is it's just a copy of the product?
Mm.
Is the product going to look and feel and fall on the body the way that it's going to be for you? And that leads to the next piece of like, oh, when I buy it, how do I try it on? And and so
Yeah.
like even Justin made a joke about now now with AI models, no clothes will fit, but it's the truth. It's like it is when we have something that's completely made up to look a certain way, to invoke the response of I like that, let me buy it. Is there any truth in advertising anymore if you're going to use your AI? And are you required on the advertising side? It's not good now. So
Yeah.
is that just a little more down the slope?
And
And
H&M, yeah, no, I was gonna say H&M has said they will watermark these as AI generated, which okay, I'm for that. But I'll pull it up on screen here because what you're saying, number one, Jimmy, Angela, my friend, has some thoughts about this that I'll play and then read part of her text to me as well, because she absolutely talks about what you just talked about. But I wanted to give credit where credit's due to Teen Vogue. That this is where I initially read this article, which makes it sound like I subscribe to Teen Vogue. Maybe I do, maybe I
Nicely
don't.
done, Brian. Nicely done. It's what you're going
Full
through.
confession.
whole point.
Full confession from Brian here.
Yeah,
He's
maybe
a
I
Teen
do.
Vogue
Maybe I do.
subscriber.
I have a teenager. Maybe I do. But it's written by Alyssa Hardy. I think that's an H. I'm going to go with Hardy. And it's a great article because I think what Alyssa does is, first of all, she does point out, I want to bring this up, that the Swedish retailer, meaning H&M, is following in the footsteps of its fast fashion competitor Mango using AI fashion models. So remember I said H&M isn't necessarily the first to do this. It says H&M is going to be rolling out with 30 this year, notably with models with their own AI image and use it with other brands. Will own their own image, which we talked about. But I want to scroll all the way down. I mean, it's a great article, but there's two things. One, I love the way she ends this. And she says, it begs the question, what is this all for? If fashion removes its people, then it's genuinely just about consuming. And that's not style or fashion. That's just soulless heaps of fabric, which the reason I wanted to bring this up is because it's kind of what you just said, Jimmy. Is that just fabric? And how does it have any soul to it, like she's saying, like, and isn't that part of what it is? Angela, by the way, has some comments on this too, so I'll let her speak for herself on that. But also what I thought the other part of it here is, does this just perpetuate stereotypes for not stereotypes, bias maybe for models? And does this just mean, because they were giving stats, I think, in this article or the other, about how many plus size models total were part of ad campaigns. And it's something abysmal, like 0.3% or something like that. It's very, very small. They were
0.03
saying that seems,
actually.
what's that, Beth?
0.03.
0.03. Yep.
When a
Not
zero
even close
makes a
to
difference.
0.3. Yeah, 0.03 is significantly different. Thank you. And they were just pointing out how like that even is like a backtrack from maybe the last couple of years where there seemed to be a renewed interest. But they're saying there's a backslide going on here. And does having these AI models just further perpetuate this issue? Or is H&M coming out and saying, no, 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 I mean, we will have ethnically diverse people, we will have people of all sizes, they're all going to be part of these AI models, and of course we'll use them wherever they're like. Does AI just perpetuate the problem that's already there with the nipping and tucking that already happens inside of Photoshop and has been part
Right.
of this industry for years?
And that
Years
I
and
think
years.
is really key in this, because that's the context in which this is happening, right? We have been it's not like the photos in ads or the ad campaigns say these are the places where this was airbrushed, just so
Right.
you know this was created with a photographer. There was a big thing about Jamie Lee Curtis did something like 10 years ago, 15 years
Mhm.
ago, maybe more than that, where they compared the photo and then what happened to the photo, because she wanted that to be a part of what was being shared, so that you could see that the look was unattainable or unrealistic, that that is being presented as an ideal.
Mhm.
The question that I have in this is, first, will there be a backlash in the same way that we're seeing people like, I left the typos in because I'm a human, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
AI would have corrected that. Or are we likely to see something where, if the goal is for the company to sell the clothing item, you're selling the fantasy that you would look that good,
Mhm.
you would look as good as that. But we now potentially have the possibility where I can control that. I can go to the outfit. I can have a picture of my body. I can say, okay, let's see whether that shape, color, whatever is going to look good on
Right.
my physique. And then, like, I can have a like styling conversation, which I have every day. You can totally tell. I can have a styling conversation with my agent, right? Because
Right.
that's now democratized, or will be
Mm.
democratized within the next 18 months. That I could have my own thing. So now we're really talking about what is attainable for me right now. I no longer need the fashion industry to be trying to sell me an unattainable ideal, because I
Right.
have a potentially attainable reality
I
using artificial reality, right? Like, yes, we are through the looking
I
glass.
want to harken back to an important word that you used in the context of fashion, and that is fantasy. The high-end models that we're talking about here
Mm.
never, I mean, imagine on a runway show where something really outrageous, that if you walked out down the street wearing something like that, even if you looked like the model, it would have been so jarring to everyone walking down the street that it would, you would draw way too much attention.
Mm.
That's not really selling the product that's there on the runway. It's creating an imaginary thing, almost to the degree of, Kelly Bosch, who does the incredible fashion AI things on Instagram and TikTok, etc. That's what I think of when I think of these high-end fashion models. They're not really selling to the mainstream consumer. They're selling an ideal, and that's another word that you used correctly, I think, in this context. I think that the AI makes it possible, as Kelly Bosch demonstrates, to amplify the creative expression of what it means to be in fantasy fashion. And maybe on Halloween, or at some costume party, you'll be able to try to replicate that kind of thing. But those are the very narrow real world applications of the kind of high end fashion that we're talking about. Most people can't wear the things that are being pushed by the high end fashion industry.
And that's not their intent, like you said, Andy. The intent is, this is the fantastical, and then it gets watered down and then mass produced so that you get elements of it that you really
Yeah,
like, and that's what gets
it's
fed
called
into the
brand
message.
shine, right?
Right.
It's like I was, for a brief period of a few years, I was the president of a high end shoe company called Sasha London, which had stores in London and Oak Street and Beverly Center and all around the States. not many stores, about 18. And we had this concept of the shoe that would be at the front corner of the window, which no one would ever wear, but would draw attention to the high fashion represented in the store. But when you went in and tried on the shoes, you didn't try on that window dressing shoe.
Mhm.
You tried on the other ones that were more appropriate to the kinds of uses that you would find the shoes with.
Right.
But we always had to have that one up there. And periodically someone would buy that shoe and we'd almost want to follow them out of the store and see if they'd actually wear it. Anyway,
Yeah.
personal
Yeah, well,
anecdote. That's kind of like firefighting or CrossFit for Brian. I got to bring in some of these personal experiences.
I wish you would, because you keep bringing up more personal experience. Like, how has Andy done that too? Like, like we always learn something new and interesting about your history and your professional background on it. I was going to say that there's somebody named Amanda that I follow on TikTok. She's Parisian. I mean, but she's an American who's been living in Paris now for quite some time, and I think she just actually got her citizenship. But regardless, she has become a bit of an influencer in the space, and so she got really excited. And because I don't remember, but I know some really fancy shoes have red on the bottom of them, and she had this really great series where she got really excited. She spent a little more than she would normally do for these red soled shoes, these high heels, to go to an event. And what did she find? But that the bottoms just got absolutely like scuffed up and disappeared. And so anyway, what she found out after the fact, because she wasn't really in that world per se, she just really wanted to get fancy for this event. It was probably around the Olympics, because that's when I was following her a lot. And so you come to find out that, oh, no. You buy these shoes with the red soles, but then you also need to get the protective layer that goes over the red soles so that the red doesn't come off immediately on any cobblestone street in Paris, right? And so she had this really interesting, I found it really interesting, sort of like TikTok series about her going through this process. They did right by her, by the way, and they like resold the shoes or whatever they're going to do. And I'm sure because of her reach, by the way, I don't think it was just out of the kindness of the heart. She had quite a fan base, and I think they wanted to make sure they were seen to be doing right. But anyway, it's that kind of like, it kind of reminds me of what you were saying, Andy, about like there's fashion that's not necessarily maybe meant to be worn or outside of it. And I don't claim to understand fashion. I understand the idea of the artistic display of runways and why there's that whole, what is it, the whole week in Paris or maybe some Milan or somewhere where they do all the runway shows. And I do understand, at least at this age, that no, it's not that you would wear what's on the runway, but in very real ways that these colors and these trends that come out of these fashion weeks trickle their way down to actually fabrics that I would buy at, let's be honest, Target. And so they may find their way into a shirt that I'm wearing, and it might be a color of this season. And I may go, I don't know, I like the shirt, but it's possible that made its way all the way from these fashion weeks and trickled its way through the system. And that's where I'm seeing it.
So what's interesting about that, I think, is that we have sort of moved away from the topic of the show, because I don't think the runway is in play right now, right? You're in a room with people who are wearing
True. It's an art installation.
They
at
may
that
be
point. Yeah.
like, as their bodies may be as freaky as professional athletes, right? Like they're sort of extreme in various ways that allow them to show up and do things like that. But what we're really talking about is print or digital media, because right now there are not but fashion models, runway models are probably relatively safe in this context.
So to extend your point, is there a future ever for a hand model? Right? There's people who make money just holding a product because their hands are so nice. Do we ever really need that again? Because
okay, if you were saying leg model, I would go with you, but hands, maybe like hands get another 3 years.
Oh yeah, AI
has a problem with hands. You're right. Okay.
Sorry, that made me think of the Seinfeld episode with George is the hand model or whatever, and then he gets it's stuck in a door or something, and it ruins his career. Before we go too far into it, well, first of all, Carl, I feel like maybe you were going to jump in, you didn't. So let me run to you, Carl, if you have some thoughts on this, and then if you guys are cool with it, I would love to share Angela, my friend, and like I said, she's a photographer and former model, because I just want to bring in somebody who's quite literally been in this industry now for 2 decades plus, to get her thoughts into this as well.
Yeah, the one thing I was gonna say is if there's a lot more AI models, or and it's easier to create from said brands, I still believe this, and I believe this too in content, is people will want to gravitate still to real things. So if there's an abundance of AI, whatever, the premium is on the thing that it is, like, there won't be, as I guess, the scarcity of it. So there's going to be scarcity of, I guess, models, and real models, and maybe there won't be as many as there is today, but I still think that authenticity and that connection that those models will bring will be still placed at a premium. Because I always thought, when you look at models, you're like, oh, that's an aspiration, or that is a fantasy, or that is, oh, I don't know if this is still true. It's like, I either want to look like that, I want to be like that, or in some cases, I want to date that. But if it's AI, I think it's like, yeah, and I don't know, for different people, different things, but it's like, but that thing isn't real. So whatever zero chance I had to do it anyway, to aspire to that, it's no longer, you can't aspire to it anyway, because it's not real. But
it's
this
not
person
objective.
is real. So that's what to me, that's sort of like anything in any kind of content creation, anything that like is generated. That's how I feel. It's like the premium will be on the real thing, because it's easy to generate any of this. Like, so even when you talk, Beth, about, oh, I can put myself in that home, I can put myself in that product, I can put myself in those clothes. I'm curious, because I know there will be some sort of marketing study on this. What will sell more? The person fitting the regular person, or the model? And I don't know, but like, I want to see that in the market, to see, it's like, which is gonna, whatever the metric will be, what will that generate, and which will sell more to do that.
Right. There is a play here for the company, right? To come close enough to my likeness that so like real likeness in the face, right? And the hands, because we understand that. Come close enough to my likeness, but with their like digital twinning kind of thing. They've set it so that I look more styled and good, just a percentage, right? Like, ooh, that's a really good look for me.
Yeah.
But if you go too far in the other direction, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not me. That's not happening. And probably if you just like paint the things on my clothing, I'm not going to be that's not going to be enough of a fantasy. I think it's interesting, Carl, and I do think that we'll see some of that, and that could actually be brand capture as well, right? I buy H&M because H&M makes me feel great about myself, about how I would look in those clothes. And the majority of time, we are not looking at ourselves in the clothes. We're just looking when we leave. So that image of what I looked like digitally when I was looking for it is going to stay in my brain as potentially what I look like in that clothes.
One thing why I'm laughing, and it's not at anything, it's really, what got me laughing is, when you say brands like H&M and all the luxury brands. I don't know if any of you follow the Chinese TikToks right now, because it's like, I can get all of it for $20. I don't need to pay your $38,000.
Right.
I'm hoping it I want full disruption on all luxury products, where I'm like, I can just go to any kind of DH or whatever it is and start buying any products that would have been marked up for like $100, $200, $5,000 and get it like at a super discount. I don't know what that's going to do, but it's really funny that these Chinese manufacturers are like, okay, well, here's how we make it. Here's how we buy it.
Yeah, we see your tariffs and we raise you 1,000 TikTok videos to show you the back end of this. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Okay, I'm going to bring up some stuff on the screen really quick. Number one, this is not my friend Angela. I'm going to bring her up in just a second. But I did want to bring this gentleman up because this kind of goes to what I think you guys are saying, or at least this is my thing. Now, this guy is named Ken. Ken, I got interested in on TikTok. What's that?
Sorry. Barbie reference, go.
Oh, no. So this guy, Ken, I've mentioned him before on the show, I think, because what he initially started making TikToks about is he was like a surgeon or somebody in Australia, okay? And this guy you see in the bottom right, that's Ken. And he would make great TikTok videos where his hook was just amazing. He got me every single time. Nothing fancy. He was just talking to the camera. What he did, though, was he made up a fake, I think it was Australian rugby team that does not exist, and then created all the gear and suits and all the stuff for it. I'm not saying the right word for it. There's a specific word for it, but he made up all the items and then sold them, and they did very, very well. In the last year or two, he has since pivoted, and maybe this is where he always wanted to be, into actually fashion, right? Like into making garments. Now, take this one right here, this last one, which I happen to talk about. It's all about double dipping denim. Say that a couple times fast. He talks about where this comes from, why it's a big deal in Japan, and he'll say the quote on there or whatever, but it's this concept in Japan of it's beautiful because it won't always last, and it's beautiful because it's here today. And this idea that this denim will fade over time, and that in a sense is what makes it beautiful. Now, this guy cares about the stuff that he's making, and he makes me care about it. And I don't think I've ever thought for 30 seconds about a denim jacket. But dang it, man, if I'm going to buy a denim jacket, I'm buying it from this guy. And by the way, nothing is cheap on there. But when you listen and him, I'm buying Ken. I'm buying into Ken's vision of this fashion. And I'm like, I kind of want to support that. Would anybody else know that that's what I have on? No, but I'm like, no, but I know he put in all the thought. He deeply, deeply cares about it. So I wanted to bring him up as just an example of where perhaps fashion will be okay in this sense. And I think you guys have sort of said it, is like, we're still going to follow the humans that spark light in us, who make us feel great. Or Beth, you said about H&M, hypothetically, right? If H&M makes me feel great in my body with their clothes, I'm probably going to support H&M. If they have an app on there that says, here's our model or AI model, but just click here and see it on you in like a mirror type AI virtual mirror setting on your phone. And you can go, oh, and I can move and the fabric moves with me if it's like a dress or something, right? Where it's flowy or whatever. I totally get that. So just wanted to bring up Ken really quick because you guys sparked on that. But let me jump over really quick to
Brian. You're talking about buying the narrative.
Yeah.
And right. And so the value that you see in there is the story.
Yeah.
And that's art. You're buying art. That's
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. You're absolutely right. Do I need that? I haven't bought the denim jacket. I don't even know how much it costs. Probably more than I can afford for a denim jacket. But my point to it is, like, you can see here, like, if you just scroll through, he's like, okay, we did this thing with Umbro, but we want to make different pants. And
okay, so this is the story of how we designed the viral Umbro trackpad. So this is the iconic one that we are familiar with. This is from the late 80s, 90s. And the big idea for this one is motion.
We're going to close, Ken. Because I didn't want to keep that going on. I know how to stop the sound on it. Let me bring up Angela's really quick. But yes, I agree with you, Jimmy. That's what I would be buying into in that particular case. Okay. This is Angela. So this is angelaphotography.com. This is my friend Angela Murray. And this is her site and all the different work that she's done over quite some time. You can see commission products. It opened up a new tab. There you go. For different types of artwork, obviously, clearly talented. This is actually Angela. That's her in the upper left. And these are all models and stuff that she's worked with. She's done a lot of work with one of the major pregnancy magazines and done a lot of photo shoots for their front cover. But this is that's Angela. And that's it. It's probably a more updated version of Angela because she doesn't have the blonde hair anymore. But I think she's even staying in there. But you can kind of see like, well, that's one of her children. Angela's got 3 awesome kids. But I just wanted to bring up her as somebody. So like, this is somebody that I've been friends with, one of my best friends in my life for the last 20 plus years. And as you can see on her Instagram feed, all the amazing different work that she's done. So I asked Angela this morning and I said, I'll just bring back up her as we're talking about her. I'll bring back up some of her work and stuff so we have it on the screen. But I said, hey, Angela, I said, I know it's early. I said, but I'm doing this show today. And man, what better expertise to have than yours? So we talked back and forth a little bit this morning, and she recorded me about a 1.5 minute audio note that I want to play. I'll just play it right through my mic. Hopefully it'll be loud enough. And then she had some follow-up texts to me after that I want to read. So if you guys will just indulge me here, let's hear from Angela. What her thoughts are, because this directly impacts her industry. Let me make sure I can get the volume up as loud as possible.
Brian has asked my opinion on companies such as H&M using AI models to do their ad campaign. In this instance, H&M is using a likeness of actual models with their permission and through the modeling agencies. However, that doesn't negate the fact that you've cut out a whole group of people's jobs, including makeup artists, hairstylists, clothing stylists, photographers, creative directors, locations for the photo shoot. We book studios for photo shoots. We no longer need that. We no longer need the equipment used to produce the photo shoot. So obviously for the workforce, we are now giving a smaller and smaller group of people a job. And this lines the pockets of who? The wealthy, the already successful models, putting their image out there over and over again that will take jobs away from 15 to hundreds of other models that should be used for jobs. Not only are we looking at the workforce implications, but what are the ethical implications of doing this? Are we ever going to see the clothes on an actual human, how they would fall and lay on an actual human? What are especially women, but teens in general, contending with? They already see these models of perfection who have been retouched. Now they never have a blemish to retouch at all. They never have a role somewhere in their body where they don't want it to be, or they push this ideal of what someone should look like. Of course, as far as the taking the soul out of it, there's no soul behind those eyes. And another reason is, why is the company doing this? It is the only reason I can think of is for profits. There isn't any human element of it at all. There are instances in which AI is helping humanity. I do not think this is one of them.
Okay, so her voice note ended there, but I just want to follow up with just a little bit more of what she said. She said, well, I got through some of my thoughts, probably not super well, but I did ask her to do this like right off the cuff. So thank you, Angela, by the way. She said, issues, ethical implications, false advertising, who's regulating the use? Would they be made to make you aware you are seeing a garment produced in a computer and it may not actually fit that way? Why? Is there any other reason than greed? How does this help humanity? Decisions made by VPs, CEOs, and CFOs will eventually create more of the societal divide while the rich get richer. The fashion industry has been seen as an art that is mixed with science. AI will turn it into just a science. Soon we won't need designers because computers will design the garments. Today, it might be my job AI is coming for, but it won't be long before it comes for you and your loved ones. And I say all this as more of a former fashion photographer who now shoots lifestyle brands. I am not directly affected by this instance of AI, but I eventually will be. So, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm hiding you guys, and I don't mean to. I'm so sorry. Come back. Sorry, guys. I just meant to hide my screen. So thoughts on that, on everything that Angela said?
It's unfortunate, but everything she said will be true. Like literally. It's, if that's the way that we're moving at this speed. You've seen what all the models are doing. You've heard what all the AI CEOs, they're pressing. Even I don't know if anyone heard the Eric Schmidt's little video clip about how fast it's going to go and what's happening. And it's just, I think we're all back to, well, it's kind of inevitable. There's no, I don't see a regulation on this too. Not in the US administration for sure. It is pedal to the metal, and there is no amount of regulation is gonna to rock that. So what I think, over time, people had time to adjust. And I know people have been saying, all right, we're gonna have new jobs. So based on this, and sure that will happen, but it's too fast. Like, I think like this is the kind of like pieces that most people won't see. And so as a society, we got to think about how can we help people pivot pretty quick, upskill, reskill, change whatever it is, because that is what's coming. I don't know how you can change that. You see how yesterday, today, whatever, there's something coming, like Kling 2.0, I think just dropped today. There is new things every day, and it's faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. So there will be, your front lines, people will be affected. So that's an observation. That's not really, it's what it is.
I think it's really interesting that we're having this conversation about fashion models, right? Because that was a pretty narrow, it's not like those are everyday people. And I was going to say, we could be having it about cashiers, but of course, cashiers also were displaced by technology to a large extent, and not AI technology. I think that what is interesting from what Angela said was the seeming surprise that business is focusing on profit. And I wonder about the art jobs, right? And I think many of us have this cognitive dissonance experience where we can fool ourselves that profit is the most important. Actually, you want to help me, right? You want to make money, but you want to help me with whatever it is. And I think we're coming to a place, certainly with the AI companies, we've mentioned it before, where like, hey, y'all who are raising trillions of dollars, if you really want universal basic income, could you not do a little trickle down situation, pay for some reskilling, those sorts of things? I think that this conversation is really interesting for a ton of reasons, but in part the instance that sparked it, because it is already a niche in which a bunch of people don't get to participate as anything but passive.
But isn't this just a stepping stone to all social media influencers? Isn't it? Aren't they also directly in line of fire in terms of being replaced? Now, Ken, with his lifestyle, the clothing that he makes or whatever, that's Ken. And Jimmy, to your point, I'm buying into the story. I really like what this guy has to say. He makes me think about things I have never spent any time. And that's a personal connection. He does a phenomenal job of it. But also, there's tons of, social media influencers. Lots of kids still feel like that's a viable path. And the same way that they may say that, I want to be an NBA star. And you look at the kid and you go, it's probably not going to be an NBA star, or whatever the case is, but that's what they see. So that's what they aspire to. My daughter would be in that range. But by the time my daughter is even at that level, is it possible that AI has swooped past, and a lot of these brands that might have once worked with influencers now say, thanks, but no thanks. We have a digital twin of your influencing, and we could just create the ad campaigns that we need to and put them out on TikTok. And yeah, maybe somebody will see the watermark, or maybe they don't. We don't really care, as long as like that feels like it's influencing of the brand. Because to me, we're talking about models today, and but to Angela's point, it may not be me today, but it will be. And so that's what I actually think is there's a direct line of sight to a lot of other industries here.
And
I
is
would,
there?
I would go ahead. I would that's where my premise though of those who create content that build human connection and human experience,
right,
and are right, to me that is the premium, because if there's a flood of AI things, people will still gravitate it. I really believe human nature in embedded into our DNA is we want to connect with real people in whatever it is. So I don't know if you have seen the evolution of essentially YouTube videos and what people are watching, and it became highly produced. Like the production level is very high for a lot of YouTube channels. But this is why the rise of TikTok, the rise of vertical shorts and UCG is people they like the people in the car just talking as is. They like the people just walking around, not the highly produced stuff, because it connects them. It's like, oh, that's a real person talking to me. So once people start, if you can, all these people doing faceless YouTube videos, right? Avatar videos. To me, if that becomes the norm of everybody trying to get that, I just don't think that will do as well versus the real person. So I still think there's a viable path for people who want to become influencers. It'll be a little bit harder. But again, if you can build that connection and human experience, you will be the premium versus those who just, hey, I'm just going to create an avatar and just run it. And I'd love to do the test on those two.
I think your points are excellent. I think there is this transition to a digital kind of community where there are many people who are making substantial amounts of money from being influencers because they can get sponsorship in order to reach their audience. Some people who manufacture goods, will want to sell to that audience, but that audience, the underpinning of the economy, which is that audience has some productive work output that's giving them cash to buy those things, is being undermined. So I'm a little more pessimistic about that and what that means. I wouldn't encourage my children to go on and become influencers, because I think there's something rotten at the core of what's happening here. And you're going to have a lot of time to try to be an influencer, but you're going to have a lot less money to buy things unless you're one of the very top influencers who are satisfying some demand that's generated by this shrinking class of people who are the high end of the distribution of income and wealth. Because I'm really worried about the other part of it, because we're firing tens of thousands of people who used to provide services through the government. In the interest of what? In the interest of saving money so that it can be used for what? And it looks like it's going to be to change the whole dynamic of the tax system so that people who are making money don't have to pay taxes. I don't understand it. It's very disturbing at this end stage of my life to see the loss of local community retail, like displaced by big boxes. And I can go through a succession of these things that are these major changes in the structural economy. And now we're facing one that's even more profound and difficult to anticipate. And that is the displacement of productive work by human individuals by AI.
It's well said. I mean, who wants? Beth, I feel like you were going to say something. Do you, or so Carl or whoever? But we're kind of on time. So, like, last thoughts from somebody on this. Beth, you're good. Okay.
I think that we need to understand why people do things, right? And what is the goal of the company who's trying to sell you something. If the goal is to make me feel seen and like good, and I can be more of myself, that's kind of a nice exchange between us. If the goal is to manipulate me to feeling like I have a lack, and the only way that I will get back to whole is if I go to the path of what you're selling. That, I think, are the divergent paths, right? And we know that AI is amazing at convincing and influencing that kind of stuff. So that kind of personalized message, right? I think it's a huge slippery slope. But I do think that the ultimate goal is to get people to do something, is to affect someone's behavior, and that may that there are external circumstances, some of which Andy just talked about, that will influence that as well.
Remember, none of us can beat the Asian content farms. No matter how much great our AI avatars are, there's going to be people with like thousands of iPhones just pumping out the content. And it's just like, so that's what I mean. Like, there's like 5 guys just like looking up, and it's just like
those pictures are crazy.
Of avatar content farms. That's all I remember.
Well, listen, we'll end by saying this, like, a couple of things. Number one, hopefully this is why you guys come in, you plural, the audience, people in our live chat, people who like Diane, by the way, shout out to Diane, who listens to us on Spotify. And I had the pleasure of talking to before the show today. Thank you, Diane, for being a listener and a follower. That's the point of this show, right? Like, we talk about AI all day, but like what you're really getting is, 5 to 6 of us on any given day having, and sometimes bringing in guests like Angela virtually to have an opinion on this and talk about it. And hopefully that's what you guys love about it. So I do want to give a big thank you to my friend Angela, who did this on a really quick turnaround, considering I just reached out to her this morning. You can support Angela and the work that she's doing. Like she said, she's working a lot in lifestyle now, but she is, when I tell you she's an artist, go look at her stuff. She does amazing woodwork. She's just uber talented. She's uber talented with like interior design. You meet somebody that just knows and has the eye. That's Angela. She's so talented. She's angelaphotography.com, or on Instagram. You can find her at Angela M Photo on there. So 2 different places to find Angela. Thank you so much, Angela. I love you. Thank you for doing that for us. Also, thanks to everybody in the comments. You guys had me laughing once again, because as we talked about Andy and your shoe salesman side of your life, people were also guessing that you might have been the original Gerber baby, that perhaps you had been to Mars. I saw some other ones on there that you were the original hand model. So people were adding to that you would run Ace Hardware at one point. So I love seeing in the live chat today as people were coming up with more ways and more jobs that you had, Andy. And on a different show, you can tell us how many of those they got right or wrong on there. That's it for today. Don't forget, you can continue this conversation by joining our fairly new community hub, which is on Slack. You can get to it by going to dailyaishowcommunity.com. That'll take you right to the login and sign up page. It's free. Come hang out with us. If you want to have more of your opinions thought about or known about this, come over to the Slack channel and do it there. So that's it for today, guys. We'll wrap it up. Thank you so much. This has been a really, really great conversation. Tomorrow, we will be talking about all the latest AI news, of which there has been quite a bit in the last 7 days. So don't miss that show tomorrow as we unpack all the things that we think are really interesting from AI news over the last 7 days. That's it. Have a great day, guys.
Aloha.
All right, here we go. Thanks,
Wanna go ahead and end it?
everybody. After show today, bonus.